How to navigate a card show like a pro. Look, the National is just around the corner, and maybe this year you are going to get the opportunity to go to that. Or maybe you are just going to check out a local small card show in your market for the first time. Well, wherever you are heading, I've got a lot of tips for you, because if you haven't been to many card shows before, going to one can feel maybe a little bit overwhelming or a little bit uncomfortable. You're not totally sure how to navigate it, and maybe you're not sure how to negotiate and how to get deals done at that show. Today's episode is all about getting you ready and prepared to go to card shows and navigate and negotiate like a pro. So let's get started. The Geoff Wilson Show is brought to you by Arena Club, the official home of slab packs. Now available every day, slab packs offer an exciting way to collect graded cards with confidence. Plus, every pack comes with an instant offer to buy your slab. Don't miss out. Explore the latest slab packs and more by downloading the Arena Club app. Just search Arena Club in your app store and use promo code SCI20 for 20% off your first purchase. Hello, and here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Geoff Wilson Show. This is Sports Card Collecting and Investing for Dummies. It's a book that I wrote along with Ben Burrows and Teapot here on our Sports Card Investor team a little bit over a year ago. And it's full of good tips for different things you may be navigating within the sports card world. Section 10 of this book, chapter 10, is all about how to navigate a card show like a pro. And for those of you who haven't read the book, today I thought I would summarize some of this chapter for you, share with you some of the tips that we wrote for this book, because, of course, maybe you're getting ready to go to the National for the first time, in which case you really need to hear some of this. Or maybe you're just going to some other show or thinking about checking out some other show. But regardless of where it is, let me get into some tips for you to hopefully help you out along your journey. So in this book, the first thing that we cover is the packing, right? Because before you go to the card show, you got to think about what to actually bring to the card show. One of the first things I would suggest is to bring cash and to bring cards. Now, that may sound simple, but let me give you some reality of the card show scene, right? So first of all, most dealers, in fact, every dealer is going to prefer cash. Card shows are largely a cash business. People want cash. There are some dealers that will accept Venmo and PayPal and Cash App and Zelle, but don't assume you are going to be able to successfully pay people that way, because there's plenty of card shows where, unfortunately, the internet is bad and the cell signal is overloaded. So trying to get your phone to load up to be able to send somebody a PayPal or a Venmo doesn't always work. And even if it does, there are a number of dealers at these shows that don't want those types of electronic payment services. Now, some may be because, frankly, they just don't want stuff on record and they like dealing in cash. Some of it may be because they may be considered a business by PayPal or Venmo or Zelle, and they're going to get charged a fee if you pay them that way, and they don't want it. Sometimes it's because there's a limit to how many PayPals or Zelles or Venmos that somebody can receive in a day, and they may know that they're going to hit that limit quickly at the card show, so they prefer not to be paid that way either. So cash is always king. There's very few dealers that will accept credit card. There are some, and actually when we go to card shows as Cards HQ, we actually bring our credit card processors. We have no problem accepting credit card from people. So if you come see Cards HQ at the National, we'll be there set up with a bunch of cards and a bunch of boxes for sale, and we will happily take your credit card. But most dealers will not. Most dealers are not set up to take credit cards. So if you're going to show, it's always a good idea to take cash. It's also a good idea to take some of your own cards. You may want to offer some cards to different dealers for sale. You may want to offer some cards in a trade. Maybe you see a really awesome card that you would love to buy, but it's a bit outside of your budget, or it's simply more than the cash that you brought with you to the show. Well, if you brought some cards, maybe you still have the opportunity to strike a deal, because maybe you can offer cash plus a couple of cards, and then the dealer will accept that for the card that you really desire. So bringing some cards with you to a card show, something, obviously cards that you're willing to move on from, something I suggest as well. And a lot of card shows have really good trade nights. Trade nights can sometimes honestly be the best part of a card show. If a card show does a good job with their trade night, if it's something that they promote and they do it at the venue where the rest of the card show is taking place, trade nights can be great. You especially find this when a card show is either in a hotel or is connected to a hotel. That's when you're most likely to find a big trade night, because oftentimes after the card show is over, in the hotel, either in a different room in the hotel or maybe just in the lobby of the hotel, a trade night will start to form. And that can always be a great opportunity to do deals with other collectors. And often those can end up being your best deals that you get done at a card show. So just another reason to bring cards with you. In terms of what to pack, card shows are very casual and they involve a lot of standing and a lot of walking. So comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes. Now, please do everybody a favor, take a shower that morning, put on a little deodorant. I know that sounds silly to say, but not everybody at card shows follows that advice, unfortunately. So take care of yourself. Come on, button up people. Take care of yourself before you go to the show, but do dress comfortably, do wear nice, comfortable shoes for walking. That certainly can be helpful. And if you are buying things at the show, you got to think about where you're going to put things, right? So if you are bringing a card case, make sure to keep some extra room in that case for cards that you pick up. Maybe you want to bring a backpack. Those are popular for people to have at shows as well. So if you buy cards, if you buy a collection, you got somewhere to stick it and you've got somewhere to hold your stuff throughout the day. Now, do be careful, because theft can be an issue at card shows. You never want to leave your card case anywhere unsupervised. It's easy to put it down when you're talking to a dealer or doing a deal or paying attention to somebody at trade night and kind of, not have your eye on it for a minute. That can be real dangerous. You don't want to end up losing your case. Most people who go to these things are great people. 99+% of the people there are going to be great, honest people that you're going to love getting to know and doing deals with. But there's always the bad apples. And unfortunately, those bad apples do lurk sometimes at card shows, and you got to be careful. I'll tell you, my younger son, Harrison, he's 10. He had an issue at a card show once where he, left a big card and walked away and forgot it, left his case once, walked away from his case. And so what I did for Harrison is I actually bought a child leash, like a child tether. You can buy these on Amazon for like $5. They're meant, what it is it's a Velcro band that goes around. It's meant for one end of it to go around an adult's arm and the other end of it to go around a kid's arm. And then there's like a little elastic string between the two. And it's really meant for if you're walking around with your kid somewhere in public and you don't want them to go running off, it's kind of a way for you to stay connected with your kid. It literally is called a child leash, but it's actually a great way to connect somebody to their card case. So what I do is I put one end of it around the handle to Harrison's card case, and I put the other end of it around his own wrist. He is now attached to his card case. He can't leave his card case and walk away or not pay attention to it when he's looking at something on a dealer table or he's otherwise distracted at the show. Since I've started doing that, we've never had a problem. His card case is always with him and he's always paying attention to it and monitoring it because he's attached to it physically. So it sounds funny, but honestly, if you've got a child you're bringing to a show, it's something to consider. And maybe even as an adult, maybe even you need something like that because of course you don't want to, just kind of leave your case laying around. Okay. So those are a few tips on things to, bring. Of course, the other thing I would say is on your phone, download some pricing apps. Obviously here, we recommend Market Movers. We create Market Movers here at Sports Card Investor. Download Market Movers to your phone. We also have a free app called the Sports Card Investor app, which, by the way, by the time you see this video, probably just launched with an incredible new redesign. unbelievable, and it's completely free. It has basic pricing information on it. Market Movers is a little more advanced in the information it has. Download both. Download the Sports Card Investor app and the Market Movers app. Have them on your phone. Hopefully you'll have internet at the show. Not always the case, but hopefully you'll have internet. And by the way, what a lot of people like to do is they will preload into Market Movers their own collection that they're bringing to the show to sell. If you put your collection in Market Movers, then when you get to the show, you can quickly call up the last comps, the last sale prices of every card on your collection just by going to your collection page. So you don't have to type anything in, or, if you can even show a dealer right on your phone, like, hey, here's the cards I brought with me. Here's a list of all of them and what they all last sold for. Just show them your collection of Market Movers. Super quick and easy. It makes getting deals done at a show a little bit easier for sure. Now, when you get to the show, depending on the size of the show, it can be like, there's a lot of difference there, right? If you go to a local card show, it could be like as little as 30 tables. That means 30 different, literally tables. When people say tables at a card show, they're talking about generally a 6 or 8 foot long table that a dealer's standing behind, right? If you go to a show like the National, you're talking 1,000+ tables. Absolutely massive. The difference in scope is humongous. And the National in particular, it's the biggest. And it is the wildest to navigate because it will take you multiple days to see everything on the show floor. If you're only at the National for a day, you will not get to every table. There's no chance, not even close to it. Probably not even half the tables. You probably need at least 2 full days, maybe 3 full days to get to every table if you actually want to see everything at the National. It's that big of a show. And because it's that big of a show as well, by the way, just a little tip from our producer, Rob, if you see something at a table that you like and you're thinking about maybe picking it up later, you better really write down where that table is because it is real hard to find your way back. And there has been plenty of times at those types of big shows like that where we'll see something and we'll be like, oh, I want to come back and maybe I might consider doing a deal on that later, or maybe I want to come back and grab a photo of that later. And then when it comes to later, I can't find the table. It's like, where was that? Was it this aisle or that aisle? I can't find it. There's so many people everywhere. It's hard to find your way back to tables like that. Not to mention that at a lot of shows, especially the busier ones like the National, all of the cards turn over often. So if there's something you see at a table and you think you're going to come back later to maybe make an offer on it or take a photo of it, there's a good chance it's not going to be there later. So be aware of that as well. But when you get to these shows, you really have to have kind of one of two strategies in your mind before you get there. Strategy number one is, hey, I'm looking for something specific. Like there's a certain card or a certain type of card, a certain player, a certain sport, a certain era, and that's what I want. That gives you some direction with how to start the show. The other way to go is say, hey, I'm just looking for anything cool. I'm just here to browse. There's nothing wrong with that. I go to some shows with the first in mind and some shows with the second in mind. Either is fine, but knowing what you're there for is important. Because if you're going looking for something specific, and then you end up walking in the door of a big show and you just start browsing around, you're going to run out of time and not find your way to that specific thing that you were looking for. Because to hunt through a card show for something specific actually takes a lot of time and work. So you better get to work if that's what your plan is. Now, I will say this. If there's like one particular card you're looking for, you often are better off buying that card online and not at a card show. Like if you think about it, even a show like the National has 1,000+ tables at the National. But think about that in size. That's huge for a card show. It's amazing. It's great. It's unbelievable. But it's a tiny fraction of the inventory that is sitting on eBay right now. Or even sitting on Fanatics Collect right now, or Golden, right? Or ComC, or any of these other sites, Heritage, Pristine Auction. there's so much more inventory sitting on those sites. You even have companies like Arena Club, which sponsors this show, that is now doing weekly auctions on their website. There's so much more inventory online than there ever could be at even the biggest card show in the world. So if you're looking for one specific card, kind of a needle in the haystack type card, you're often better off trying to find it online, because trying to find that card at a show is truly going to be a needle in the haystack experience, and it simply may not be at the show. And if it is at the show, there may only be one of it at the show, but there may be 4 of it available for sale online right now. And maybe you can get a better deal by going that way. Who knows? So I actually don't suggest that you go to a card show just in search for one singular card. What I think a card show can be really good for is if you like a more of a type of card. So whether it's, gosh, I love kabooms and I want to go see a bunch of kabooms, or I'm a big collector of Jordan and I want to find Jordan stuff from the 80s or Jordan stuff from the 90s, or I really like vintage soccer cards, for example, then a card show can be really cool, because then you've got like kind of a little bit of a niche almost. And then you can go table to table browsing. You may never find that single needle in a haystack card that you might be better off buying online, but you may find a lot of interesting cards from a type of card, from a niche, that you just want to be able to see and get appreciation for and browse. And so I think it's good to go to a card show and at least have the direction of a type of card, right? Those examples I just gave, whether it be a player, an era, a sport, a set, whatever it is, or some combination of those things. I think having that in mind is good when you go to a card show. Or you can do the other option that I talked about earlier, which is you can just simply browse and get lost in the card show. I like to do that a lot too. I like to just go and just see what I'm going to see. But keep in mind, that's not going to be efficient. If you're there just to enjoy and just to maybe come across some cool, unexpected stuff and maybe pick up a few things along the way, then that's wonderful. Go enjoy your afternoon or your day just browsing the card show. But if you're there because you actually want to, get some stuff and kind of accomplish something to build your collection in somewhat of a specific way, then you have to go into the card show with a little bit of a plan, with a niche as to what you are looking for. And then once you get there, you got to go find the tables that fit that niche. Because of course, every table, every dealer is going to have a little bit of a different setup. Unfortunately, card shows don't always do a great job. In fact, they hardly ever do a good job of organizing dealers or tables into any type of pattern. So unfortunately, when you're going through a show, you're likely to see vintage at one table, ultra modern baseball at the next table, soccer at the next table, and then, Disney cards at the next table. It's just random. It's just random. It's whatever dealer booked their table first and got closest to the entrance. There's typically no organization in what is where at a card show, which makes it hard to find what you're looking for. If you want to collect UFC cards and you go to the National and you're like, I want some UFC cards, man, you got to go around table to table to table looking for UFC cards, and you will find some, but you don't know where you're going to find them. Now, if you can ask dealers, hey, do you know anyone who's got UFC cards? And some dealers probably will, and they'll point you this way or that way or over there and say, oh yeah, my buddy so-and-so, he's over there and he's got some UFC cards. So you can do that. But it's still difficult to hunt and to find the type of card you're looking for. So you have to have a lot of time on your hands. So get to work when you get to the show. Like, get to work, go up and down the aisles, move through the aisles systematically, know where you are, in terms of like, okay, I'm on this aisle. Now I'm going to go to this aisle. Now I'm going to go to this aisle. Because otherwise, you'll be at that show for like hours or maybe even a couple of days, and then you'll not be sure if you browsed this aisle before or not. You'll be kind of lost. So I think going through the show systematically makes sense, particularly if you're there to hunt for certain things. Okay. So you got a sense now of what to bring. You got a sense of maybe how to go and start to approach the show. But now what happens when you actually get to a dealer table that actually has some things that you like? Well, one of the first things that I do is I look at the price that the dealer has stickered on cards. And I hope that there are prices on cards. Some dealers don't put prices on their cards. Personally, that drives me nuts. You have to ask the dealer for their price on everything. I don't prefer that. If I go to a dealer table and they don't have prices marked on anything, unless there is something that I see that I really want that really catches my eye, I'll typically move on just because I find it a little bit annoying that they don't have a price on anything. Now, sometimes I'll see something that I really want and I'll ask the price. And that's totally fine to do, right? That's what they want you to do. Obviously, if they don't put prices on anything, they expect you to ask them what the price is on every single card at that show. So that's fine to ask them. It's just a personal preference. I prefer prices. I think it keeps things easier. When a dealer does put prices on everything, one of the first things that I'll do is I will actually look at a couple of the more common cards that sell often, like a card I've seen before, a card that I know transacts online often. And I will look at that dealer's price, and then I will look the card up in Market Movers and see what it last sold for. How close to or above that price is that dealer? You'll find two types of dealers. You'll find dealers that put sticker prices on cards that are reasonable, that are either right around what it last sold for, or maybe 10 or 20% above what it last sold for, because they're expecting you to negotiate with them a little bit. And then you find dealers that are pricing their cards at 50%, 100%, 200% more than it last sold for. We've seen examples of this. We did a video not too long ago at the Dallas Card Show where our audience astutely picked up on the fact that the dealer literally had cards that were priced 4 times what they last sold for. I didn't call the dealer out on it, but I was looking in Market Movers while I was looking at cards on their table, and cards on their table that were stickered at $1,500 last sold for $350 or $400. If I see that, I move on. I most of the time, I don't even bother trying to negotiate with the dealer because I'm like, we are so far off. And that's an extreme example. But there are, even if a dealer, even if I look it up in Market Movers and it's a $110 last sale and the dealer's got it stickered at $200, I'm just going to move on most of the time. Because the idea that I've got to negotiate that dealer's price in half just to get them down to what the last price was, that just seems kind of extreme. If it last sold for $110 and the dealer's got it stickered at $125 or $130, no problem. Happy to see if I can get that dealer to move down 10 or 20 bucks on the card, and then we got a deal. But if the dealer's got it stickered at $200 and it last sold for $110, I'm just like, ugh. It feels too far apart in my mind. That's just personal, how I approach it. So when I go up to a table, I always like to see if they have stickers, first of all, because I want that, price stickers. And then if they have price stickers, I'll price check 1 or 2. And then I'll be like, all right, this dealer seems pretty close to recent sales on everything, pretty close to comps. This would be a good table to work with the dealer and get some things done. Or this dealer seems like they got everything way overpriced and I'm just going to move on because I can probably find these same cards somewhere else on the show floor. And I'm not going to waste my time with the dealer that's got everything stickered at double market value. That's my opinion as to how I approach things. Now, keep in mind that dealers expect to negotiate. And most dealers will have things priced a little bit high, hopefully not outrageously high, but they're open to some negotiation. Now, don't expect to really get a dealer below last comp unless you're buying a lot from that dealer. Some dealers, if you're buying a lot from them, if you have an established relationship with them, if you're buying a whole bunch of cards from them, you can say, hey, could I pay you 90% of last sale price? Some dealers will say yes to that. A lot of dealers will tell you no. Some dealers will say yes to that because maybe they're buying everything at 70% of last sale. And if you're willing to pay 90% of last sale and you're buying multiple, then they might say yes to that. If you're only buying 1 or 2 cards, don't ever expect to get that. Like if you're only buying 1 or 2, probably they're going to sell it around last sale price, and that's probably about the best you're going to do. And some dealers won't even go down that low. Look, if a dealer's got something rare, if a dealer's got something iconic, if a dealer's got something that they know there's a lot of demand for, they may not go down to last comp. They may say, hey, man, I think the card market's hot on this card. I think this card's in demand. And I think I'm going to be able to sell this card for, 10 or 20% over last sale at this show just because people want it. And that may be true. And so not every dealer is going to come down and meet your price demand. And look, if they don't, that's their choice to do business that way. It's also your choice to go to another table. Don't be insulted. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. It's just simple. Can we align on price or can we not? And it's sometimes the answer is going to be yes. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. You should always attempt to negotiate unless you think a dealer is just giving you a super fair price. There are certain times when I'll go to a dealer at a show and they'll have something, I'll say like, hey, what's the price on this? Or they'll have something stickered. I'll be like, you know what? That's really fair. That's right at the last sale price. I know this is an in-demand card. I know the market's been hot for this guy. I'm not even going to negotiate. I'm just going to pay it because I feel like the dealer is being fair. Perfectly fine. You don't always have to negotiate, but most of the time you should try to negotiate because most of the time dealers are expecting you to, and often the dealers have a little bit of wiggle room, especially if you're buying multiple things. Now, of course, be nice. The nicer you are to the dealer, the more respectful you are to the dealer, the more thankful you are for their time, and the more you acknowledge that they're busy and they've got other customers and they've got other options, and you're just really happy that they have a card you're interested in and you want to be respectful of them. The nicer approach you take, the more likely it is that the dealer's going to work with you a little bit on something, right? So be nice, be kind, be respectful. Maybe if you have a good experience with the dealer, maybe you can even build a relationship with that dealer. And by that, I mean, maybe you buy something from them the next time you see them at a show and the time after that. And then the deals will start getting better. Relationships are a big thing in the sports card hobby. And people appreciate people who do business with them routinely. And people appreciate people who treat them really well. Relationships are a big thing on both sides of the table. A dealer who treats you really nice is probably a dealer you want to go shop with again, right? And a customer who treats a dealer really nice is probably a customer who a dealer is more willing to work with and more willing to do a better deal with in the future. So nice goes a long way. Relationship building goes a long way, especially when you're in person at card shows. It's definitely something to keep in mind and definitely something to have. Just be that way. Just be nice. Just be nice. It always pays off. I've mentioned a few times, negotiating based on last sale price. Of course, you need to know last sale price, right? And I mentioned the app Market Movers. It can help you with all that. If you can't get a sell signal inside the convention center where the card show is, and if you're trying to buy a big card where you really need to know that price because you don't want to get ripped off, you don't want to end up getting a bad deal, you're not quite sure where the market is, and you want to make sure you're getting a fair deal on the card, don't be afraid to go walk outside into the parking lot where you're going to get a better sell signal and look up the price. I've done that before. I've been at card shows before. I was at the National one year where I could not get a signal to save my life. And there were a couple of really big cards that I was interested in, but I really was not sure exactly where the market was on those cards. And I could not get Market Movers or any app to get any signal at that point in time. So I wrote down the cards and the table number and where that dealer was. And I walked out to the parking lot and got a signal and looked the card prices up in the parking lot and wrote them all down and then went back in and negotiated with the dealer and knew where things were at, right? Knew what the market was on those cards. So don't be afraid to do that when you're working with the dealer. There's some timing when it comes to a card show in terms of when you're likely to get your best deals. Right when the show opens or right before it opens, if you're able to get in with like a VIP badge or a dealer setup badge or that type of thing, you can often find good deals from dealers, especially in bulk, because dealers sometimes like getting a little bit of cash right at the beginning of the show. It gives them more buying power. They may want to buy cards off of people coming to the show. And so having some extra cash in their pocket to do that from the start of the show gives them a little more buying power. So if you can get in right when the show starts or even before it opens, and if you're trying to do a bulk deal with a dealer, that's a really good time to do a bulk deal. A lot of shows will have hours on like a Thursday or a Friday. those hours are a lot slower than on a Saturday. Saturdays are typically your busiest day by far at a card show. It's often the day when it's hardest to get good deals because there's a ton of people there. So the dealers are going to have a ton of customers. So they're less likely to move on price because they see a whole bunch of other customers wandering the card show floor who may come to their table and pay them the price they're asking. On a Friday or a Thursday, at the very beginning of the day, when the show is practically empty or very, very quiet, dealers are probably more willing to work, especially if you buy in bulk and if you have cash, because that gives them buying power throughout the show. On the other hand, at the very end of the show, they also tend to be more willing to work with you. Sunday afternoon, they got to pack up and head home. All those cards that are in their case, they got to put them all back into cases and load them back in and take them back to wherever they came from. So if you're going to show up Sunday afternoon and offer them a price on a card, they may be more willing to accept that late on a Sunday than they would be on a Friday or Saturday. Because late on a Sunday, at that point, they know they're not selling it to anybody else. So you're standing in front of them with cash and an offer, and they hadn't sold that card all weekend, they may be more likely to take your offer at that point in time. Certainly more likely to take your offer than they would have been during the heart of the day on Saturday, right? So Sunday late in the day, you can sometimes get your best deals, especially if you're buying in bulk. Because the dealer, if you walk up to a dealer late on a Sunday and you say, hey, I'm interested in these 20 cards and I'll pay you 90% of market value, the dealer probably is a lot more likely to say yes because they'll be like, all right, I can move 20 cards here right at the end of the show. I'll still make a little bit of profit on them. Not as much profit as I was hoping, but those cards didn't sell over the course of the show. So the dealer might say, sure, I'll take 90%. Give me your cash, I'll take 90%, you know? Whereas on Saturday, if you had made them that same offer, they may have said no. There's a lot of people here, I'll sell them for 100% or more of their value, right? So Sunday is also a good time to look around. Don't forget, there are so many dealers at these card shows, especially the larger ones. If you can't get a deal done, if you can't see eye to eye with the dealer, don't get discouraged. Just go meet other dealers. Or come back to the next show. Like, it can be, you can get kind of a fear of missing out, a FOMO, when it comes to sports cards. This happens often, whether you're at a card show or bidding in an online auction or in a live sell. You can get some FOMO. You can get some like, man, I really want this card. And this, you know, if I walk away from this dealer table, I'm not going to be able to get this card. And maybe I should pay the price the dealer's asking, even though it's 20 or 30% over market value. Don't get bit by FOMO unless it truly is a one-of-a-kind card that you're unlikely to see again. Look, I collect Tim Tebow. He's my PC, right? If I go to a card show and I see some really cool Tim Tebow one-of-one card that I've never seen before, or like a PSA 10 pop one of like a Tim Tebow refractor or something that I've never seen before, in that case, I might allow my FOMO to get the best of me. I might be willing to pay what I think is 20 or 30 or maybe even 50% over market value just because I really want that card. And I know that if I walk away, I truly may never see that card again. And if that's the case, that's okay. If it's a card that you really, really want and you may never see it again and you want to overpay a little bit, you're getting hit with FOMO, okay. Go for it. But if it's a card that comes up for auction multiple times a year, if it's a card that you're likely to see at the next card show, if it's a card that if you don't buy it today at this card show, that you could probably find it on eBay in a few weeks, then don't get hit with FOMO. Hold yourself back. Don't make a deal that you're not 100% on, because you'll find that card again. You may even find it later in that card show with one of the other dealers, but if you don't, you'll find it online or you'll find it at the next card show. So the only time it's okay to get hit with FOMO is if it's truly a super rare one of a kind that you're unlikely to see again. Otherwise, be smart, know the value of cards, negotiate, do deals intelligently, and don't be afraid to walk away. All right, guys, those are some of the tips that I have for card shows. If you're going to the National, make sure to come say hi. We'll have a big setup for the sports card investor booth at the National. We'll also have market movers represented there. We'll have our Card Kids Trade Zone, a huge trading area for kids that's going to be set up at the Sports Card Investor booth. And Cards HQ will also be there with 2 booths of its own, buying cards from everybody on the card floor and selling some cards as well. We've got a huge presence. We'd love for you to say hi. And even if you're not going to the National, if you're just going to another show in your area, I would love to hear from you in the YouTube comments. Let me know what you thought of today's episode and what tips you might have to add for other collectors. Thank you for watching, and don't forget these full-length Geoff Wilson Show episodes are on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And if you want a copy of the book, Sports Card Collecting and Investing for Dummies, it is available right now on Amazon. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Take care.